Welcome back to Third Phase Moon. Blake Cousins here, and we have special guests, Corey Good and David Wilco, in regards to their new documentary, Above Majestic. Facebook and other social media services doesn't want the information to get out.
Well, we definitely expected this movie to be controversial. All the topics in it about secret societies, the reptilians, QAnon, satanic ritual abuse, and the secret space program, it's going to catch some flack. There's no way around it. We expected Facebook and other social media to try to block it from coming out to the mainstream, but it's coming out anyway. We even saw a huge smear campaign against some of the people in the movie and the movie itself, but it still is going viral. I don't think anything can hold back the message of this movie. So I think what you can expect is for it to basically be seen everywhere. A lot of people are going to have their paradigms questioned, if not smashed, and they're going to have to at least open their minds and consider looking at the world in a whole nother way.
So you have to understand that when it comes to a subject like the secret space program, the amount of media censorship, the amount of opposition that we have encountered is totally outrageous. This doesn't make sense to me if what we were talking about was actually untrue. It actually makes a lot more sense that we're getting censored this badly if in fact what we're talking about has an underlying grain of truth. So that's the first thing. Why, on literally the day before the film is going to premiere on direct-to-video release, do we have the social media giant Facebook telling us that we are not authorized to comment on current events or politics? And I talked to the guys, by the way, at the studio, and what they said was that the authorization process takes 10 days, okay? And if you ask, they almost never give you permission because they did the research. And when you get that question, you're lucky to even get a response. So what's going on here? Why would people be so upset about the secret space program? Why would they care? Why would if you want to call it that, the deep state, use social media against us in this way? In other words, if we're not telling you the truth, if this is all just a big make-believe, when you try to sanitize people's opinions, there's clearly an agenda behind that. And that is like popping open the manhole cover to a really dark sewer that a lot of people don't want to look at. But you know what? If we don't go deep within and try to find the reasons for why these very bizarre things are happening in our society, then we are doomed to repeat the same mistakes that we've been making all throughout recorded time. And I don't think that that's where we need to be as a society at this point. I think we need to transcend the idea of my way or the highway, might makes right, take it or leave it. This kind of stuff, the internet is supposed to be free. It's supposed to be something where everybody can talk. And that's another question that I've asked to people who are skeptical about the things that we talk about, like the secret space program. I asked them this question. Well, if you are so threatened by this information that you need a corporation to prevent you from even seeing it, don't you feel that you're cool enough, knowledgeable enough, smart enough, intelligent enough to understand for yourself what's true? Don't you feel that you have the pizzazz in your life to be able to decide whether you want to believe something? Do you really need a company like Facebook to tell you the truth?
The DC flyover was an event that occurred over successive weekends in July of 1952 in Washington, D.C. And what had happened was that there was a mass sighting right over the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. There was many lights in the sky. Now, many people believe that this was a UFO or an extraterrestrial incident, but in fact it was not. It was German saucers, German craft that were flying over the Capitol building and essentially forcing the hand of the Americans to accept many of these Nazi scientists into their control structures. When many of these Nazi scientists came into America after World War II in Operation Paperclip, they infiltrated into basically every power structure in the United States, government, media, medical systems, basically everything. After World War II, James Forrestal went to Germany to tour many of the research facilities that the Germans had over in Europe, and John F. Kennedy actually accompanied him on those tours. Some believe that Kennedy was actually given information by Forrestal about secret space programs and the UFO phenomena. And near the end of James Forrestal's career, he was also embroiled in many policy struggles within the United States government. He wanted to disclose the UFO phenomenon and the technologies associated with it. It was said that he committed suicide by jumping out of a high-rise hospital that he was staying in at the time of his death. But of course, many people are also believing that he was actually pushed out of the window and in fact assassinated to prevent him from working to disclose these technologies in UFO projects.
Recently, over the past few months, Donald Trump has been talking about the U.S. Space Force. Both of you guys have been talking about it for a long time. Why do you think the president's mentioning it now?
Well, I've talked over a year about the alliance. And the alliance, it's made up of a loosely knit group of people fighting the cabal. The alliance had sort of made a deal that they were going to go for a partial disclosure, which is they're going to let us know about certain technologies, certain parts of our history, but in little pieces and protracted out over 20 to 50 years. Well, those of us in this full disclosure project, we want full disclosure, and we want full disclosure now, and that's what we're working for. So a part of this slow release of information is going to be, we have had some secret technology for a while, but guess what? We can just fly out to the, maybe to the moon and back, maybe to Mars on extended excursions, but we're pretty much still around the Earth right now. But we do have some anti-gravitic technologies, and we're now letting you know about it. Well, I've been talking about that being a part of this partial disclosure, and the Space Force, I think, is a way for them to aggregate all of these secret programs, secret space programs on the military-industrial complex level, to aggregate them and, do a debut under the Space Force moniker.
I've had different answers regarding President Trump and whether, in fact, he has been briefed on the extraterrestrial presence. One of the things that I think I can get away with saying, and there's always a risk here, is that Pete Peterson told me that during the time of the 2016 election, remember, Gaia was advertising our show Cosmic Disclosure on the front page of Drudge Report, which was grand central for all of the news related to the election. So there we are on the front page, being seen by millions and millions of people, and during that time, Pete had some episodes on the show. Somehow, according to Pete, Trump actually did phone him and asked him, is the stuff that you're saying in the show with David Wilcock actually true? And Pete said yes, and Trump said, thank you, that's all I need to know. It was a very short conversation. So, does Trump know what's really going on? And from what I've heard, again from Pete Peterson in this case, you don't get your full cosmic security clearance. Even as the President of the United States, they don't give you that clearance until you've been president for 2.5 years. And he hasn't quite been president that long yet. Because remember, the election was at the end of 2016, so you have the year 2017, 2018. So based on that statistic, Trump wouldn't be getting information about the cosmic level of clearance until mid-2019. However, we do believe that thanks to this group called the Alliance, which is, again, an international group comprising a majority of the different countries of the world, their governments, their militaries, and a surprising number of the military and intelligence community here in the U.S. They are all working now for a common goal, which is to stop this insanity that is going on with the globalist elite who are literally trying to depopulate the planet. They want to reduce how many people are here by billions. They even put that initiative out there in the so-called Georgia Guidestones, where it says that they want to bring the planet's numbers down to 500 million people. Now, I've heard from certain insiders that they've now bumped the number up to potentially as high as 2 billion, but that still means 5 billion people gone. And this is insanity. Remember, they do have very elaborate underground facilities that can hold millions of people. They have incredible underground drilling technology. They have the ability to build incredible cities in a relatively short time. And that is where a lot of our money is going. Our money is not just disappearing, it's going underground and it's going off planet. And this is no different than what we see in the history of Rome, in which Rome was expanding so much that now all of their money is offshore because they're busy trying to build empires outside the homeland, and the homeland ends up crumbling. Except in this case, the homeland is the Earth's surface. What we're not seeing is these gorgeous, glistening, beautiful underground cities. All of these various shuttle systems that they call the sub-shuttle that allows you to be transported at very high speeds from one city to another. We don't see all the spacecraft that they've been designing. We don't see the elaborate build-outs they have on the moon, which are usually on the dark side so that we don't see the lights when the moon is obscured by the Earth's shadow. We don't see any of the stuff that they've got on Mars. We don't see the stuff that they have on various other moons and asteroids in our solar system. This is real. This is not science fiction. We are being lied to on an unbelievable level. And Trump definitely is aware of at least a good part of what is going on. And that is why I believe on September 19th that QAnon, which does definitely appear to be coming from the Trump administration, anybody who studies it for very long, you're going to figure that out pretty fast. QAnon said that programs exist outside the public domain regarding secret space programs. The problem, of course, is the president is not on a need-to-know basis. So we are dealing with a corporate structure that has completely broken away from the elected, legitimate governmental bodies of the earth. They don't answer to anybody, they're not accountable to anybody, and they have a technological advantage that makes it very difficult to approach them on their own terms. But this is another interesting area, which is the idea that the secret space program itself, despite being what Richard Dolan would call a breakaway civilization, actually does have its own alliance where they are doing their part to try to bring all of their technology to us. Understand that the whistleblowers I've spoken to, the insiders, have said that the technology in the secret space program is so vast that it would literally solve all of the problems we have on Earth. Clean up radiation, desalinate water and bring it to the point where it's drinkable, greening the deserts, solving all of our problems with trash, solving all of our problems with hunger, with poverty, starvation, homelessness, you name it. There is nothing that we can't do with the technology that already exists. This technology also includes portal travel, the ability for us to go to the stars. It's truly phenomenal stuff, and it shouldn't be kept hidden from us. So wouldn't it be amazing if President Trump decided to come forward with what he knows? And that seems to be a big part of what's going on here. And I've been talking about this for many years. Pete Peterson was giving me briefings from the Alliance all the way back in 2009, where they had a plan to do mass arrests of the people in the so-called deep state. And now what we're seeing is over 55,000 sealed indictments on the books. And we're about to get another update as of October 31st, which is today, the time that I'm taping. And it's probably going to be a few thousand more. Could even be over 60,000 by now. I don't know yet. But the point is, those sealed indictments contain many, many names of people in the deep state. And sealed indictments can have up to 93 people's names in them. This is another important point. When I went back and I looked at various other sealed indictments that became unsealed, such as when they were busting organized crime rings for drugs. I saw plenty of them that had 30 people listed, 40 people listed, this kind of thing. So don't get hung up on 55,000 sealed indictments as if that means it's 55,000 people. The number could be a lot higher than that. And so we really don't know how this is going to happen, when this is going to happen, what form it's going to take, but it is going to be really incredible.
We stand at the birth of a new millennium, ready to unlock the mysteries of space, to free the Earth from the miseries of disease, and to harness the energies, industries, and technologies of tomorrow.
After the inauguration, the president signed a number of secret memorandums stating that he wanted the release of advanced technology. And a lot of this technology was involved in the space program. We know that President Trump is aware of advanced technologies because his uncle was the one who went in and cleared out the safe of Tesla after his death. Aside from the Secret Space Program Alliance, we have a different alliance.
The alliance is an international group. It is a confederacy. There are lots of different factions, some of which agree, some of which do not agree, about the only thing that they all have in common is they want to see this elitist cabal come down in flames. They do not want these people trying to kill off most of the planet, trying to control all of this immensely high technology. The alliance also consists of a surprising majority now of personnel in the US military and in the US intelligence community. So we're going to have to deal with the fact sooner or later, and probably sooner, that not everybody in the government is bad. This is part of the psyop that was put out through movies and through media to get us to completely distrust all levels of society, all of the institutions, so that no one will ever be able to oppose these people.
Some people say you don't have any proof that you could corroborate the evidence that you've been talking about over these years. What do you have to say to these skeptics and these naysayers about your testimony?
Well, they're right. A deep black, deeper than black government program is designed to where everyone who goes in and participates, when they leave, they have no proof. They have nothing but a story, if that. Many of them are given psychotropic drugs while they're there to cause their memories to be a little wonky, and then they use blank slating technologies on them. So no one is going to come out and have a book or a manual taken from one of those programs and say, here is the proof. There's no way you can make it up one of the elevators or through the security checkpoints with anything. So, of course, there's going to be no proof. All there is corroboration between other people who are considered somewhat legitimate or legitimate whistleblowers. And historical evidence, along with people like William Tompkins coming forward, have definitely led credence, along with people like David Wilco and Dr. Sala doing heavy research.
Can you both delve into the different extraterrestrial beings that exist amongst us today and why there is no solid proof of evidence that they exist?
Wow, yeah, the government at last report had admitted in, I think, Majestic type papers that there were 58 or so groups visiting us with, I think, 3 or 4 main groups. The Ebens, which are a group that are peaceful and don't really meddle too much. And then there are the Greys, which we should talk about them being the tall Greys. The short Greys are really just androids or robots that are used by all of them. They all use them. And then you have the reptilians. Of course, we talk about that in Above Majestic. And then we have the Nordic types. The Nordic types have told us that they're from all different types of star systems, and there is more than one Nordic type. But what we found out recently is that one of these groups, at least, is us from the future. And there are other groups like this Nordic group. There is an African-looking group. There is a Polynesian-looking group. I think we're going to find very few of these extraterrestrials are Caucasian or blonde-haired, blue-eyed, like a lot of people depict. Many, many, many of our cosmic cousins from the local 52 star cluster are people of color. And when we get to a point to our cosmic cousins actually visiting and integrating with us, we are going to be forced to deal with some of our petty racist programming here on our planet. We'll have no choice at that point.
We put together programs that went all the way out into the galaxy, not just this galaxy.
The collective story that these insiders have shared with me has utterly revolutionized the whole basic discussion.
Your parents dropping you off at school just like any other day, except that day you're pulled aside and told you're going to go on a field trip.
We were taken to some kind of facility out on the Nevada desert.
We learned and we trained and we did all sorts of operations when we were there.
They would give us a chemical through a shot.
He injected me in the side of the neck.
Little did I know that I was going to be drafted in the secret space program.
There is and has been an ongoing extrasolar planetary colonization program that's been going on for decades and decades.
Some believe that Kennedy was actually given information by Forrestal about secret space programs.
President Kennedy was indeed going to make some announcements. When he was eliminated in a very public way, the cabal came into power in a very public way.
The deep state is a group of very powerful individuals that have acquired a lot of money, a lot of technology.
No one will ever be able to oppose these people.
Every book on this planet is misinformation.
To program our minds away from the truth. Physics, medicine, history, everything we are taught is wrong.
The evidence is voluminous.
Free energy.
Time
The
travel,
secret space program.
already discovered.
We will become a truly galactic civilization.
This may sound like insanity. This is what happened.
This film is the red pill that wakes you up to what's really going on in the world.
Is the recent vamping up of the Space Force in regards to maybe some kind of hostile alien threat amongst us?
So President Trump mentioning that he's creating a Space Force and this is going to be a new branch of the US military is certainly a very interesting point. And in fact, my fellow commentator Benjamin Fulford recently just told me that he was listening to radio in Japan and they were recruiting soldiers for a Space Force and said that it would be similar to serving on a ship. This is happening now. So we have some really interesting stuff going on here. What does Trump mean by a Space Force? What are we really hearing here? Where is this all going? I have received briefings about what this is supposed to be and where it's taking us. And it is very interesting. It does appear that we as a planet may need to fight some kind of a battle. Because from what I've been hearing from various insiders, there is a very serious battle going on in space right now. We did apparently have a group of extraterrestrial beings that are highly evil, that have been written throughout our histories and our mythologies going all the way back to the ancient Hindu scriptures, where they have Rakshasas, also called snakes, humanoid beings that look reptilian that are very evil. So this is nothing new. These beings show up in people's fears, the archetype of Satan and demons, these beings that have vertical slit pupils, that have scaly skin. There actually is something to that. There's some deep part of our subconscious or our greater higher self that apparently knows these beings exist. All the different ETs that we see are human-looking in various forms, but this particular type is indeed derived from reptilian life, but it's reptilian life that evolved into a human-like form. They tend to be a lot taller than we are, sometimes twice the height or more of a conventional human being. They could weigh up to 3,000 pounds, be 14 feet tall, have a 5-foot wide span of their shoulders. These are very nasty beings, and they came to the earth apparently going back to ancient history. They've been tampering with many different cultures throughout time, and they even made a deal with Nazi Germany in the late 1930s before it truly became Nazi Germany and did what it was doing for World War II. All of this stuff is not fiction. I've had too many different insiders who proved their bona fides to me. They showed me the legal documentation of their military service. They speak very articulately. Many of them are not on the record. They all have talked about these reptilian humanoids. And this is one of the things that Above Majestic does so well, is to expose what these beings are, where they came from. We have rare footage from William Tompkins that nobody's ever seen before except for maybe a few people, in which he's talking about this and the fact that he was there in World War II taking briefings from 29 different American spies embedded in Germany's secret space program. And one of the things that they were seeing as they were working in these secret facilities is these tall, reptilian-looking humanoids that were obviously extraterrestrials, telling everybody what to do, running the show, being in charge. Violent beings, beings you do not want to mess with, beings that will kill you if you disagree with them. So everybody's basically in something like a slave camp. Well, what I've heard from Pete Peterson is that in the not too distant past, there was a war in which we, as in Earth humanity, are now throwing off this Draco reptilian control. We are fighting them. We are fighting them in space. We are fighting them underground. There are entire cities that they had that we have destroyed. We have brought up our level of technology to the point that we are now at parity with them. We can fight them on their own territory. Our weapons are as good as their weapons, and it is a very serious battle that involves thousands of ships, many, many thousands of soldiers, and again, most of these people are living in a breakaway civilization. There was something called the brain drain in the 1950s, in which many, many people got shipped off planet, and they are no longer a part of Earth reality. They don't get to come back. They either stay underground or they stay off planet. In some cases, they're told that we wiped out our planet in the 1980s with a nuclear war, but they can't come home, even if they wanted to. And the information is so tightly controlled that there's no way that they would ever know otherwise. So bear in mind that this is the world that I live in. These are the insiders that I talk to. It's very controversial stuff, but we have heard that there may in fact be a need for us to fend off more of this Draco threat, and that there will be a need for people from the conventional world to become aware of this and to engage in the fight. And this is serious. I'm not making this up. This is some of the briefings that I've gotten. I don't know if it's true, but it's certainly a provocative question.
Our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
The gravest error a thinking person can make is to believe that one particular version of history is absolute fact. History is recorded by a series of observers, none of whom are impartial.
RF-4 jets spotted and took photographs of a huge carving in the desert over 1,000 feet across.
No tire tracks and no footprints.
The Germans had a settlement on the moon, they had a settlement on Mars, and they were doing this as early as 1939.
Between the age of 16 and 17 years old, I was transported to the moon, and after 20 years, I was age regressed back in time and then returned to civilian life.
Extraterrestrial spacecraft have appeared over nuclear missile installations and have completely powered them down.
We put together programs that went all the way out into the galaxy, not just this galaxy.
according to some estimates, we can now track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
This money is going into underground military bases and secret space programs with technology far beyond what many of us could even realize. Everything we learn is designed to program our minds away from the truth.
This film is the red pill that wakes you up to what's really going on in the world. And at some point, this is all going to break open. The more you get involved, the more compromised you become. They may actually kill you.
All right, we just watched a clip from Above Majestic in regards to age regression. Corey, you've been aged regressed. Can you tell us the technology behind this? What's it feel like, and how old are you as of today?
I've been age regressed 3 times. I've done 3 20 and backs. What they do is the process is they bring you in and they begin putting you on a cocktail of medications immediately that begin to condition your cells and DNA for the rest of the treatment. For the treatment, you have to be completely immobile. So they come in with these styrofoam kind of braces. They put them between your legs and between your arms and your torso, and then they strap you in with Velcro or belts. And then they give you a medication that puts you into a slight coma. And you're in that coma for 2 weeks as the age regression occurs. And it occurs through a chemical means, pharmaceutical means, and is aided through some sort of energetic outside equipment that speeds up the process. So as this is occurring, if you're 6'1" and you're like 38 years old, 37 years old, and you're going back to having the physique of a 17-year-old, you're going to lose bone mass, and it's a very interesting process, and I don't know all the details about how exactly it works. Wish I did. But at that point, at the end, they put you in this, what looks like a long MRI machine, except it's just one solid machine. It's not a little piece that moves back and forth. And you slide into this giant machine, and it activates, and then you disappear. But what happens is you reappear in that exact same machine, but 20 years earlier. And then they take you out, rehab you, and it's really foggy as to if they do the blank slating and debrief at the end of the 20. I'm not exactly sure exactly when that was, because all the medications that they had you on at that point. And all of this is also done as a way of not allowing you to have memories to bring back with you. I'm told that the Nordics brought the 20 and back program to the Americans and told them that this 20 and back program had been used on planet after planet after planet to help liberate it. It was a way of them to come in and gain resources without directly screwing with the timeline of the planet. The regular timeline proceeds, but people are pulled out to fight this war as assets, and then they're just plugged back in with no memory of what occurred. It is some sort of crazy cosmic temporal war that's been going on for eons. It feels like getting very, very sleepy, just like going through anesthesia. Psychologically afterwards, there's confusion. Your psyche is used to you being a certain stature, age, and now it has to go back to 0-point reference and figure everything out. Being that I did 3 20 and backs, and I'm 48 years old right now, that would put me around 108 years old.
Are you still part of the secret space program? Are you still enlisted? Have you been outcast?
I am not enlisted in any programs at this point. I was pretty much, the end of my last 20 and back would have been around 1996, around June or July. At that point, I really didn't